a year where I've been raving and dancing around and screaming about how good electronic music is, how good house music is in 2020, it feels so right and so accurate that we would end the year with DJ Sabrina, the teenage DJ, with an album that is 3 hours long, a mammoth epic release to end all releases. Had to be the way to end electronic music in 2020. DJ Sabrina is an artist I've been aware of for quite a few years. The instantaneous memorability about DJ Sabrina is just right in front of your face. There is no artist that is so committed to an aesthetic, a theme, a narrative, an image like DJ Sabrina is. Scroll through their bloody Instagram account. Nearly every photo is involved with Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Every album cover has Sabrina on it. The album titles are pretty much in that lane, in that theme. There truly is nothing forgettable about DJ Sabrina, and I am impressed at the commitment to this role. It's pretty funny, honestly, and I kind of dig it. But up until earlier in this year, I hadn't actually heard anything from DJ Sabrina up until Making Magic, which has always been an album that's been on my radar, and is one that I've always wanted to check out. But the length of it put me off a little bit, because obviously sometimes you have to find a few hours just to sit through something. You don't have to listen to something from start to finish in one sitting though. That isn't something you have to do. It's just something I like doing, I enjoy doing. Like, I get myself in the mindset and I'm going, yes, we're going to sit through the whole thing, whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours, we're going to do it. And Making Magic is a pretty impressive album, by the way. It's got some really fantastic songs on it, and it ends really well with the final track, which I was really impressed with how, 2 hours into it, you're still getting stellar songs to close out the album. It's a good album, really good release, definitely check it out. But Charmed is on a league of its own in the response that it's gotten, because slowly but surely people have really been cottoning onto this and really taking to what Sabrina is doing on this album here, and it's become one of the biggest cult beloved albums of 2020, right at the end of the year somehow. And I'm not here to go against that, by the way. I'm fully on board this cult train, because Jesus Christ, Charmed is absolutely one of the best albums I've heard this year, and wow, is it just absolutely glorious from start to finish. I totally understand you if you saw the 3 hour, 4 minute length of this thing and go, maybe not right now, it's a bit long, might save this for another day. I get it, I totally do get it, but believe me when I say that the consistency of this thing is insane. Like, there is, you could use the term filler for many albums, filler tracks. Oh, these tracks are a bit duddish, not really as good as the rest. They're kind of filling out the album. Like, you could use that term, but here I just don't hear it at all. It does not apply to me in any case. There is no filler on this thing at all. 31 tracks, and pretty much every single one of them hits and is fantastic, which to me kind of gets its own extra separate praise, because if you're going to do 31 tracks, then you're somehow going to have to find a way to make each one individual interesting, keep the listener engaged, and yet every track seems to do that. Next to me, one of the best songs I've heard this year. The way it builds and the final few minutes are just absolutely something else. The way it starts off too with the groovy instrumental, the vocals match perfectly with the instrumental here. It's cheery as hell, it locks you in instantaneously and you are just ready to see where it takes you. And with however many listens later, this track is still not here to disappoint. The core melody of the track totally reminds me of something that you would find in a 90s sitcom or something like that, which is hilarious because obviously Sabrina the Teenage Witch, it came from that era. I don't even know if it is sampled from something from that era. Maybe it is from the TV show. I have no idea. but it's certainly not the theme song of the actual TV show. I know that what that sounds like, so I used to watch the TV show, but I don't know where it's come from exactly, but it just totally reminds me of something that you'd find in that kind of TV setting. The track just exuberates magic, like the way it all comes together is like no other. It truly isn't. Like, this is house music at its best. It feels emotive, powerful, and also has a fantastic groove to go along with it that makes you continuously bob your head. Wow, you can't ask for anything else. And with there being 31 tracks, I think me talking about every individual track would probably get a bit tiring for a review. So I'm just going to talk about the main highlights of this thing, because there's a lot of them, to be fair. But I think talking about every single track would probably feel like I'm repeating myself and make you get a little bit bored. Love Foundation is bright and sunny as hell. It's just a beautiful summery house banger. Honestly, as soon as the sun comes out in the UK, this is the kind of track you're going to want to start playing at parties and shit like that. Once the vaccine sorts everything out, of course. Pool Party is a track that shows a slightly different side to Sabrina here, because it has like an almost disco flavor to it. Quite a few of these tracks do showcase this disco side to what Sabrina could do, which I really like, because it just adds an extra flavor, an extra ingredient, if you will, to some of these tracks. Because obviously, if every track followed the same pattern, it would get very old very quickly, but obviously that is not the case. I like the way Too Long Looking Back and then Too Long Looking Back 2 follow different sort of paths in what they're going for. Too Long Looking Back particularly has this really cool, chill, wavy aesthetic to it. Reminds me of like early Neon Indian, in fact, and Toro y Moi. It's far less on the house side and offers something slightly different for the album. Not one of my favorite tracks by any means, but I do like the way that Sabrina takes us in a slightly different direction and makes these tracks stand out. Too Long Looking Back 2 is a track that has similar kind of vocals, but is much more funky, honestly. The funkier side of Sabrina comes through on this one, and Jesus Christ, is it a big bop. Big bop. I love the instrumental on I Want You to Know, which is absolutely triumphant as hell, and is an incredibly long track, but Jesus, it is crazy how the track just never slows down, never gets old, never feels like you want to skip it or anything like that. It just keeps you on your toes the whole way through, and you are just following this really over the top but bouncy as hell banger here that is just so damn exciting. Similarly with what I've just said about never getting old, you've got the track New Year's Resolution, which has the repetition of the vocals. The vocal refrain that is pretty much repeated from start to finish. But I don't know, man, I love the way these vocals sound, and it just, again, has this really emotive power to it that makes you kind of feel like you're hanging on every last word that they're saying. And yeah, it really doesn't get boring or stale. I think it really works for what it does. Kind of like something like Shinichiro Yokota would do, where like everything just feels like it's repeated over and over again, and yet you're not really getting bored, or at least I'm not getting bored. Some of these tracks are absolutely larger than life as well. You've got tracks like Still Cool, which just, oh my god, it kind of gives you tingles, you know? It just feels like everything's being poured into this track. Everything Sabrina's got is just being sucked into this song. I don't even know what that means. Sucked into this song. It's making me say things that don't even make sense. It's just masterful how all these vocal samples get intertwined with these instrumentals and how they're all put together. It's crazy what Sabrina's doing here. I think there aren't really many artists around that can nail this in the way that they're doing. It's absolutely insane. The track How Did You Know, for example, has this beautiful guitar tone laced into the instrumental, and it just feels perfectly placed. And then you've got those vocals as well. Because I love you. Oh, it sounds so fantastic. It is just such a beautiful moment on the album. Alrighty then is a great track to point out as well because it has this like vaporwave aesthetic to it. Reminds me of something that Friendzone would do. Definitely check out that Friendzone Collection 1 mixtape because I raved about it in my mixtapes video for the 2010s. Which I think it's a fantastic mixtape there, and it's got that kind of similar like vapor wavy plunderphonics type thing going on. And I feel like it's an important track for the album as well because it reminds me of the fact that this album sort of has a plunderphonics feel to it running the whole way through. It's not quite like your obvious plunderphonics staples or classics like something the Avalanches would do, for example. It's not quite like that, but there is this kind of like undertone to that genre flowing through the album, which I really appreciate. I think it's only going to take someone with a huge appreciation for very specific songs and genres to find certain samples and manage to throw them in to tracks like this and make them work so well. Just like with the track How Did You Know, with the Because I Love You, just how it fits so well. Down with Love can only be described as someone sounding like, or maybe it is, Casey Musgraves on this one, over a really blissful instrumental. It really sounds beautiful, honestly, and the vocals again match perfectly with this track. I don't know if it actually is Casey Musgraves, but perhaps it is, and I'm just not quite recognizing it. A track like Charmed has a strange vocal sample laced into it at the beginning, which I'm not sure if I'm a huge on, like the modulated vocals here, not as big on, but as soon as it kicks into the you, do. Yeah, I'm instantly in love with that track, but I could go on and on and on. I'm talking about so many tracks here, and I'm just essentially repeating myself. I'm just constantly saying, this track's fantastic, this track's fantastic, this track's fantastic. I guess it's important to wrap things up by talking about the closing track, End of an Era. Wow, oh wow, this is on par with the opening track as, being one of the best tracks here. Absolutely sensational. To open out your album and close out your album this strong is unmatched. Like I don't know if there is a single album this year that has the strength of the opening track and a closing track like this album. It's really tough competition. This might be the peak of the sampling on the whole thing though, because I was pretty confident in recognizing Mariah Carey on this one with the track Emotions. I did in fact confirm it with DJ Sabrina, and it is correct. We got it right, the ears got it right. And my God, is it laced in perfectly, as well as many of the other bloody vocal samples across this thing. God damn, this is a house track for the ages, seriously. The length of this track is really long once again, but I don't know, I think you'd be fooling yourself to say it's too long, because from start to finish, it just brings out so many beautiful moments that I just can't shake away from my head. As soon as this album is done, like, this track is just stuck in my head for ages. The whole album is just incredibly comforting. It is one of the most comforting house albums I think I've heard ever, actually, not just this year but ever. And that's a huge statement. That's a huge goddamn statement. Like, I ain't just throwing that out there for no reason. I truly think this is a special release that I can't stop thinking about. That's when you know an album's great, or even better than great, because when you can't stop thinking about it, when you can't shake away so many of the beautiful little vocal samples, the little snippets throughout, the fantastic instrumentals, yeah, that's great. Easy 9 out of 10 here. We're talking like album of the year contender stuff here. Like, it really is that good. Wow, I'm amazed by this. Charmed is one of the best albums I've heard all year, and I'm glad it came as late as it did, so I can rave about it just before the list season. List season is coming up soon, and yeah, here we go. What a friggin' great, fantastic album. 9 out of 10. Hopefully you agree. Let me know in the comments. I need to know how you feel on this thing. Thank you for watching this review. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you listened to this album based on my recommendation. Thank you for watching. Do have a good day. Subscribe if you haven't already. Lots of great videos on the way. Please subscribe to keep up with what I'm doing. Hopefully you enjoyed my video here. That's it. Goodbye, and goodbye.